Witness the darkest chapter in the Conjuring universe. Here's your look at the new Starries, the Defo Real, the Nun Valak Deluxe version. In The Nun, a prequel to the Conjuring films, the demon Valak takes the form of a nun and stalks the Holy Sisters of a Covenant in Romania, an ancient site that holds a dark secret and a portal to hell. The Valak closed-mouth deluxe vinyl statue is about 15 centimeters or 6 inches tall and includes a nun's fabric costume, belt, and cross around her neck. Features articulated shoulders and wrists, a head that rotates, and eyes that glow in the dark. Before we get into this review of The Nun, I'd like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at Starries, who were nice enough to send this sample my way. We're going to take the tape measure and put it right to the very top of her head there. Stop the tape measure right there. And as a service I provide to you guys, the members of the mob, I can read out to you that the Defo Real series of The Nun stands 6 inches in height, and that in centimeters works out to be 15.3 centimeters tall. The Defo Real series of Valak, the Nun, comes included with a display stand. Really nice, actually, that we even get a display stand, because really Valak stands fine on his own. He doesn't necessarily need a stand at all. And yet, Starries includes a flooring, which I could be guessing is pulled from the Carter Monastery, of course, the location, the convent in which the nun takes place. It's all done in gray, painted gray, with nice little details and stuff to it. Get a good close-up look at it. I like the little cracks and stuff also on the side. We flipped the base upside down, not a whole lot treating you there, other than a few, of course, rubberized feet to prevent scratching on surfaces. As I said, Nun stands fine. I mean, it's not a case where I have any issues or difficulties getting Valak to stand, but as you can see, it does finish off, I have to say, the piece rather nicely to be able to actually display the Nun, the Valak, with an actual display stand. So I like the fact that they did actually include one. To come also included with the Nun, you do get the painted portrait of Valak, which again is recreated from the film. Now in the film, granted, it would have been done on canvas. This is not obviously canvas, this is cardboard. But again, it's a nice recreation to the one that we see in the film. The neat thing about it, though, is they also give you the necessary means to have Valak actually holding the painting as he does in the film. We're going to go ahead and take the figure, and there is some posability in this, which I really do like. You can put the hands up. For this, actually, I did swap the hands out. I'll show you guys what I mean in a second. But you can go ahead and just take the painting very eerily and just slide it down the fingers, just like so. And you can see it doesn't quite completely cover Valak's head, only because the head is so big after all, but at least it does somewhat mimic the scene that we see, of course, where the nun is hiding behind the painting. Really a nice touch, the fact that they would actually have it included that. And it might be a strong contender for maybe how I may display it off and on. Or at the very least, I might even just display the painting behind the nun. I'm not really quite sure yet. As I said, though, I had done a little bit of tweaking when I pulled this out of packaging. Defaulted out of the packaging was just a pair of more relaxed hands than the more aggressively pointed or bent fingers that I swapped it out for on these hands. See the difference right there? This one's a little bit more straighter fingers. These ones are slightly more bent. These are really the hands that you want to be using for holding the painting. These hands don't quite pull off the same effect. These ones are also good too, because you can kind of have the more scared gesture. Of course, sneaking up. You can have the nun displayed like that. I kind of like that. I really think that's clever. And I probably will, of the two hands, I think I'm probably going to be favoring going away from these hands and moving more so to displaying the figure with these instead. Okay, so let's have a look at Valak, the Nun. A nice recreation in smaller scale, which of course has larger proportions in places like heads, from Starries. As you probably already know, you long-time viewers will know that I'm a big fan of deformed figures in the sense that you get a large head and you get a slightly smaller body. The same can actually be said here for Nun as well, which basically checks off all those boxes. Large head, yes. Smaller body, yes. Slightly more larger arms in contrast to the body. But like all the calling cards are there. And Defo Real definitely does deliver in that deformed style that I really do like. I want to show you guys a close-up look at her face. Like, this is some of the best paint work that I've seen Starries produce. And I think QMX is the one that was helming the 6-scale release of Valak, which eventually I would like to pick up. I would have been thrilled, based on what I'm seeing right here, had Star Ace been the ones that actually would have produced that 6-scale version of Valak. I think, based on what I'm seeing right here, what an exquisite paint job for something smaller and more deformed in style. Now, the eyes do light up. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. They don't so much light up as they glow in the dark. You can see the vein work that's running out, emanating from the eyes and around the mouth area there. Just exquisite paint work. You see the black there also in the lips, which isn't completely solid black. It seemed to get a little more playful with the purple that's already there. A lot of purple actually on the face. So it's really not all a completely pale face at all. Really such a stellar looking head sculpt. I mean, obviously it's smaller in size, but I still see Bonnie Aarons, the actress, of course, that has reprised the Nun, I think in 2 instances already, Conjuring 2 and, of course, the Nun. Certainly want to see more, certainly, of her making the appearances as Valak, because, I mean, she has a really distinct look to her, and I think Star Ace captures that perfectly. Oh, what a nice looking head sculpt. Now, there are 2 versions of the Nun, if you're in the market to pick up this one for yourself. Valak 1, which is the deluxe version that we had a look at right here, has the more neutral face expression. And then there's Valak 2 that has basically all you see here with the more angrier head portrait, which we will be looking at in a separate review. Of course, she is wearing the habit, the gown, the veil of what the nuns actually wear. Really, again, nicely recreated. You have the coif, which is the top of the hat there, and of course underneath the veil. And then underneath that, you've got yourself the little tiny, would you believe this is the wimple? I looked this up. Some interesting, of course, recreated articles of clothing for, of course, the nun. The neat thing about the veil, though, is while it is attached here, you can't remove it. You can move it slightly, but it is really sewn in place, so you really don't want to cause damage to that. But the neat thing, though, is the veil seems to have a wire frame to it, as you can see there. So you can bend it and manipulate it a little bit. I don't really know how much you would want to manipulate it anyways, because for me, at least, I would want to have the veil, the coif, sitting down. I guess this is the coif here. The veil sitting down low and close to the face. For the course of the rest of the habit, you've got the robe, you've got the belt, looped and laced, fed through itself. It looks like it's almost like a faux leather material with some nice seamed stitch lines running on either side there. And of course, no nun would be complete. Even an evil nun would be incomplete without a cross. This one has a little tiny small cross wrapped around her neck via a very thin looking threading. The neat thing again about this one is not only does it have glow-in-the-dark features, but it does have a fair bit of articulation, especially for some of the defo real stuff that we've seen in the past. We'll have a look at the articulation right now. Her head is on a ball joint, and you would almost even think that the way that the veil and the headpiece for the nun would sort of constrict what you could actually do with her. You get still a full range of motion. I mean, you can tilt the head back and forth, up and down, and in theory, you could rotate it all the way around. That might be a little bit more where you get that hiccup, where the fabric wants to kind of, at least the collar carries weight with it, but I feel like it would start twisting over time, so you want to stay a little bit away from that. Now, if we look at the arms, I want to bring the arm up here for a second. The arm does have articulation. I sort of want to show you guys how that articulation is. A nice touch also is the fact that they fully painted everything on there. It doesn't just stop here at the wrist and then you would have a normal colored body. They actually fully painted everything, really. So it's nice that they've actually done that. So she does, or he does, have articulation in the arms. You can move the arms out. And then there's a secondary hinge right there. Seeing that in the elbow? And you can rotate that back and forth. And then there's a third articulation point in the wrist, where you can move the hands back and forth, and you can rotate them all the way around. A little bit smaller pegs, so you want to just be careful of that. Good range of motion happening there. There is no articulation in the waist, and there's really no articulation in the feet. This is kind of where we get more staction. The feet, if anything, you could rotate the shoes. That's really about it, though. So as I said, this one does have glow in the dark, not necessarily light up eyes. The eyes do light up, but they light up only because of the paint that they used for these peepers. Let's go ahead and cut the lights and have a look at those right now. With the lights off, you can probably barely see those eyes glowing. Of course, the prolonged experience of having the eyes in front of a light source will give you greater results. But it's just to show you, here in person, the eyes are pulsating and glowing green. The camera, unfortunately, has already exhausted what it's able to actually pick up. But again, I love the fact that the eyes do actually light up here on Valak. Peekaboo! Yes, I see you. Hiding behind the painted portrait here that comes included with the stellar figure release of the Nun is a fantastic likeness to actress Bonnie Aarons. Not obviously the way that she looks when she goes out walking or going to the grocery store. You can't imagine that she's wearing the habits or the makeup for the Nun, but it's a dead-on likeness to how she appears in both the Nun and the Conjuring 2, which of course the Nun makes appearances in. So much was a fan of this design that I'd love to see her reprise a role yet again. Nun was a good film, but it certainly wasn't my favorite of the Conjuring universe. Obviously, it had to be a period piece, and it felt just that. I like my Conjuring films more so in the present time, or a few decades, of course, earlier than that, but more so in the present time myself. But I certainly would love to see Bonnie Aarons come back yet again to reprise her role as the Nun. Now, that's just the Nun. What we do get here is a smaller representation of the Nun, deformed in style with a smaller body. Longer limbs, yes, and a big giant head. But if you were to take that head off, if this is something that's alienating you from this figure, take the head sculpt off, and if you put it on a regular scaled body to the sizing of this head, it's one of the best likenesses I've seen of the Nun. And it has me really wondering why Star Ace couldn't have produced the 1/6 scale release of the Nun. Instead, QMX, I believe, is the company that is helming that, has released it, and I've so much ordered it, it's on its way as we speak. So we'll probably have a look at, obviously, that in a review. Maybe I'll do a comparison side to side. I don't feel the likeness is going to stand up as well as what Star Ace has been able to capture, not only with the sculpt, but one of the best paint jobs I've seen on any of the releases they've done, whether it be Defo Real or the 6 scale releases or the 1/8 scale releases. This is definitely one of the best paint jobs I've seen. It's a fantastic likeness of the Nun. Smaller, yes, in size. Smaller body, sure. Larger head, absolutely. But you can't overlook the fact that the paint job on this is some of the best you've seen. And a big fan of the Nun's designs. This is definitely something that's going to sit out on my collection. It's also good because it's smaller in scale, that it's not going to take up as much space as larger collectibles go. If you like the Defo Real series, and if you like the super deformed styling of these characters, the Nun, if you ask me, is a must pick up. Whether you pick up this one, the Valak 1, or you can also get the Valak 2, like I said, which is the more screaming representation of the character. Any way you slice it, this is one of the best Nun likenesses that I've ever seen. A big thank you, by the way, also to the folks over at Star Ace who was nice enough to send this sample my way. If you guys, like I said, are in the market to pick up the Nun for yourself, he should be available soon. I think is pre-ordered right now through various online stores. So when the pre-order, of course, you want to jump on that when the pre-order is happening. And then when it's available, you can have the Nun delivered right to your door. Not, of course, the 1-to-1 scale Nun, because that would be frightening. Let me know what you guys think down below of the Defo Real Conjuring Universe, the Nun Valak. A neat looking release. Also, if you are new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. You don't have to join the convent to follow along this channel's exploits. Make sure you hit that bell notification as well, members of the mob, and stay tuned because there's going to be a whole lot of Star Ace reviews lined up and coming your way. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.